Hey everyone, and welcome. This is my first live in February. I think the last time I went live was like super early in the year. Since I've been gone, a lot has changed. Our country is losing its ever-loving mind, in my opinion. And I feel like I can say this representing a lot of people at this point. We're not really sure what is happening to this country. We're not really sure what is going on. And a lot of people have anxiety, and there's a lot of uncertainty happening right now. I also, again, can speak from a place of being a woman and being a person of color where it feels very unsafe to be in a lot of different spaces. And so tonight, even as I'm going to talk about podcast guesting and marketing strategies and all the things, I want to be very clear that this conversation is rooted in the mission that I feel like this business, the Podcast Pitching Society, is deeply, deeply connected to. This is not just about how to become the next big whatever. I believe that there is a concerted effort that has been for a very long time, but I think it's just now a lot more louder, and it is in every way government sanctioned at this point. The intentional and systematic attack on the voices and the rights and the freedoms of traditionally and historically underrepresented and marginalized communities. And for folks who are experts who fit into that group, I know because I'm one of you that this environment is incredibly, incredibly scary. And much like the pandemic, I think it is it's causing a certain level of awakening. It's causing people to wake up to the reality and the um, unfortunate circumstance that maybe if you've had a regular 9 to 5 that you thought you would have into perpetuity until you retired, realizing that that's not safe right now, realizing that you have to have multiple streams of income because at any point, the thing that you thought was safe can be taken from you and uprooted. Right. And so, as we have this conversation, I want to make sure that that is clear, that that's where I'm coming from. And that's really a huge part of why I do what I do. So, who am I and what do I actually do? My name is Curly Drummond, and I am the proud CEO and founder of the Podcast Pitching Society, where we help underrepresented subject matter experts leverage strategic communication, strategic storytelling on other people's podcasts in order to increase their visibility and also get in front of their ideal clients with more intention. So tonight, as we kind of talk about all things podcasting, right? I didn't want to sugarcoat this conversation. And in fact, I really want to treat this as if you're my client. One of the things that we do for our subscription based clients, people that are with us month over month, for each of the podcasts that they go on, we actually help them beforehand and go through whatever they need, right? We can do role playing. We can do kind of strategic, okay, how do we want to tell what stories do we want to tell? How do we want to wrap that into the different offers, all the things, right? There are tons of different strategic ways to leverage a podcast. And a lot of times it's situational. So different situations, different podcasts call for different things. And so the 3 things I'm going to go over tonight are not exhaustive. There's so many different ways for you to stretch the opportunity that you get with just one podcast interview that goes beyond just sitting and talking to somebody for 35, 45, 60 minutes at a time. First and foremost, I want to say that as we are entering into the incredible unknown, and I don't mean incredible in a good way, it's incredible as it's like, it's a lot, right? There's a lot of unknowns. There's a lot of things that we thought were steady, stable, and there that we're starting to realize is not. And frankly, there have been people letting us know that for years, and now we realize that. What am I talking about? And specifically, what am I addressing here? I'm addressing the fact that for so long, and I'm saying this as a marketer, for so long, we have been told as business owners, even as just like people who want to be creative, et cetera, that social media was the place to be. And so, therefore, a lot of people rested their business and, frankly, all of their marketing efforts on one thing: social media. And we started seeing that ceiling, or whatever the thing might be, the foundation crack a few years back for the first time when Facebook and Instagram and WhatsApp went down. And everyone was like, wait, this is possible? Hold up. And it was only for like, I think it was like an hour the first time, but it almost like it opened the floodgates, because ever since after that, like, you've now seen that happen more often. Things are going down. Then you saw TikTok was gone. And then now it's back. At any point again, it could be gone. What that really means is, if you are marketing your business, of course, use social media. Leverage every tool that's in your toolbox, but do not become over reliant on that in order to mark your business. You need to make sure that you are diversifying. And in fact, I would say that social media is down close to the bottom of what you're trying to do. The whole point, and I say this all the time, so if you've been following me or listening to me, what I'm about to say is not a surprise. The whole point of social media, in a lot of different ways, if you're a business owner or someone who is selling something, is to get the people who are connected to you on social media, who are commenting on the post that you're sending, who are showing interest in anything, right, that is connected to you. The whole point of that whole activity is to get them off, is to get them to where they're pretty much on your home turf, meaning in your email list, or on your email list, where they're buying your product on your website, or they're signing up for your service or your mass class or whatever on your own thing, something that you own. We have now realized, through all the stuff that's happening, we don't own any of this. All of this could go away in 2 seconds. And so you have to make sure that whatever you're building, you're not building your business on quicksand. That's what this is, right? Social media, as much as I'm using it right now, I'm aware this could go away tomorrow. And what you don't want is you're building your business on something that someone else controls. I'm a control freak. It's in my nature. And so for me, that is something I really want to make sure for myself and for anyone that's connected to me, that is driven home. And so, even if whatever I'm about to share doesn't hit home, I hope that part hits home. You absolutely need to make sure that you're not simply focusing on social media to grow your business. That being said, if you are going to do podcast guesting as a strategy, right? And I'm not just talking about being on podcasts because it sounds good, or you want to feel good about yourself. And I'm just going to be real. Like, a lot of people, experts are not, right? You get a DM, someone like, hey, I would love for you to be on my podcast. You do no research whatsoever about the podcast. You say yes. You say yes to all the opportunities, because why not? That is fine for the beginning. But if you really want to use podcasts and podcast guesting specifically as a strategy to grow your business, as a marketing tool, there are things that you'll have to do that go beyond just showing up and knowing some stuff, right? Because expertise is super important, as we know. However, the world is becoming much more globalized and has been for a very long time, which means that expertise is no longer even a special thing. Right? There are a lot of experts. What is happening, and we see that more and more, is that it's the person who's the loudest. It's the person who is everywhere. It's the person who is putting themselves out there that are actually going to not only get the tag of expert, but become an authority in that field. And so when you do these podcasts, the first thing you want to do is make sure that you're actually connecting person to person to the podcast host or producer, right? Because a lot of times producers produce multiple podcasts. So if you pitch and you get placed on a podcast and you realize that it's through a producer, that's definitely something for you to, of course, connect with the podcast host themselves, but make sure that you're also opening a relationship and connecting with the podcast producer as well. Here is how. One of the things, and we just talked about social media, use it to your benefit, right? Find the show, follow the show, find the show host, follow the show host, right? They're going to be, especially if they're in the middle of their season and dropping episodes, they're going to be dropping episodes. They're going to be dropping insights and anything like that. And you want to make sure that you're like biggest cheerleader. Oh my God, this is so insightful. And I'm not talking about, this is great, exclamation point, did it, commented. No, something thoughtful, something that makes them excited to finally sit and talk to you during that interview, right? By the time that they are sitting with you in that interview, it's possible that they have interacted with you in another way already, right? Same thing for the producer. Even if, again, you're only interacted with them for the initial setup, if you schedule, hey, I would love to, grab a virtual coffee with you, just to talk about maybe any other shows that you're having it source folks for, et cetera, et cetera. Like, connect with them, whole other thing, grab coffee and build that relationship as well, right? There is something to be said about going a little above and beyond, which is why you don't really want to say yes to every single podcast that comes along. When you're beginning, absolutely do it to just kind of practice. That's fine. But like I said, if you're trying to do this now as like a marketing channel, there are some things that you have to put in, intention. One of the things that I talked about earlier with my coach, she just spoke at Funnel Hacking Live. And I mean, every single thing was thought about. Every single detail was just like checked. And there's literal dollar amounts tied to that intention, right? Being able to create an entire plan and execute that plan with intention results in good things on the back end of that. That's not just for a speaking engagement. That could also really relate to your podcast guesting experience as well. If you treat it like it's a speaking engagement situation, you're going to squeeze the juice out of every single part of that. And so the first piece is making sure that you're building and like cultivating that relationship. So that is pre-interview. You're doing that and making sure that you're connecting with a podcast host and the podcast producer if there is one. And then you're also going in and scheduling a pre-podcast recording meeting. What are these? There are times where you'll have a good, and I'm saying this subjectively, even though to me it's objective. Subjectively, a good podcast host is going to tell you, hey, we need to sit down and do a 15-minute, 10-minute chat before our actual recording. Why is that? Because if you've never met this person before, if you cold pitched them and they said, great, this sounds like a good idea, we're all set. And from that, you responded to a questionnaire that they might have sent you. And then you just hop on a call to do the interview. There is zero intention in that. There is very, very good chance that the conversation is random as all get out. And there's also a good chance that you come away from that with absolutely no real leads to speak of. And so when a podcast host is good, they will not only send you the questionnaire, and it will have more than just like, hey, give me your contact information. It will want to know a lot about you and all the things that you want to talk about and all of that. They will schedule a call. What a lot of people do, and what I did when I first started, if that wasn't offered to me, I didn't ask for it. And that is a mistake. You need to request that. And if they say, I don't feel like doing that, then that might be a situation where you just respectfully bow out and not do that podcast. Because if someone is not willing to do that small piece to ensure that the conversation is actually a quality one, they're more than likely also not going to be promoting that episode. And I mean, when we talk about intention again, it spreads through all of the things, right? One of the things that my husband says a lot, and I've heard it from other people as well, is like, how you do one thing is how you do everything. And I hated it. I hated that saying when I first heard it, but it's absolutely true. So if you're trying to be intentional, like you're really trying to make this a thing for yourself, that is absolutely a necessity. Make sure that you're requesting a pre-recording meeting with them. It can be short, but that's also where you want to make sure that they have the right links to things. If need be, you want to ask them, most podcasts don't have pre-selected questions for you. Some do. If they do, you want to make sure you know what those questions are. And that's really where you get all the clarity. And a lot of people are either scared or don't even think to ask for a pre-recording meeting to get on the same page as the podcast host, because by the time you actually do the recording, you've already sat down and had a conversation. There's been some rapport there. And of course you come in maybe like for 2 or 3 minutes beforehand and talk about the weather or whatever on the day of the recording, right? But that's not enough time to build and really understand. They get to ask you questions. You get to ask them questions. You get to kind of tell them what your goals are for the interview and all of that. It's really, really a good, it's a great way actually to ensure that you're getting the most out of your podcast and they're getting the most as well. So I'm going to pause there before I continue. And I want, for anyone who is listening to this, even if you're not listening to this live, I want to ask you, how many times, if ever, you have had a pre-recording meeting with a podcast host, and what did you feel like it added or helped when it came to the quality of the conversation that you had during the actual podcast interview? I'd love if you can give your feedback in the chat to let other people see and understand how important that is. It sounds like something simple, but again, it goes back to intention. This whole thing really can be summed up for the people who take that extra step to be more intentional about this entire process. They're going to stand out and they're going to make money, period. Right? You can come in here and you can wing it and have a decent conversation or even a good conversation and still not see anything come from it. Right? This is not something that you can really just become naturally good at. You have to put intention in it. You have to put practice in it, right? And so that's a huge part. So another piece of what I would strongly suggest is to make sure that you're following up and doing a post-interview meeting. And this is, again, a piece of intentionality. And a lot of people don't do that because we are so used to transactional. Okay, you asked me to be on your podcast. I did it. We're done. Cool. Let me know when it's posted. And frankly, I've done that. I've also been on the receiving end of that as a host myself, where the person didn't even really post their episode to promote it. I'm like, you were on the podcast. Right? So think about the fact that, okay, if you are in a particular industry, I'll give you a perfect example. It's actually from one of our clients. She was or is in tech, but specifically STEM, more kind of manufacturing tech. And she has started a group for African women in STEM, right? And then we got her booked on a podcast with a woman who runs a Black women in tech podcast, or women in tech podcast, before they even had a conversation, like the actual podcast recording. There was already an understanding. Hey, we're going to partner. Hey, we're going to try to do some kind of thing together. We're going to share audiences. There was already that. And during and after, there's just more of that. Why? Because it wasn't just a one conversation thing. It was like, hey, I can tell that your audience would actually, like, this is a synergistic relationship. Let's explore that further and see what happens, right? So, like, there was a meeting after, I think it was even actually before the podcast, for just them to connect and do their thing. Not even like a pre-recording conversation, totally just for connection, right? When you meet a podcast host that you believe would be a great synergy partner, and frankly, that could be a campaign that you go and intentionally pitch podcast hosts that you believe would be great synergy partners, right? They're serving people that you want to serve or are currently serving. Because then you can say, well, I'll go on your podcast. If you have a podcast, you can tell, oh, you can come on my podcast. Or it could be a situation where, oh, great, I would love to do like a webinar, like a co-branded webinar with you where we share each other's audiences and pull this in. Oh, is there a possibility for any other kind of partnership? Do you know anyone else in your industry that would need these services, or whatever the case is? Building that rapport, again, because you've started with intention. By that point, you've been following them, you've been commenting, you've been building a level of like, okay, cool, this person genuinely, cares about the topic, cares about what we're doing, believes in our podcast, believes in our mission, and you're building positive rapport with the person. And then you have a bomb, crazy good conversation with them on the podcast. By the time that's all over, then you're not like, hey, can we hop on a call really quick? I'd love to kind of talk more about that. I've had someone, and this was early on in building this business, I went on there to talk about my old marketing agency. And by the time I was done and did my pitch to his audience, he's like, we need to talk. And, we scheduled a whole sales meeting from a podcast. I pitched the podcast host. And that wasn't even on purpose, right? So there's opportunities all around. It's not just about going on there and like sounding smart. You have to start thinking about, okay, from like soup to nuts, well, how many different touch points can I have with this person to bring them into my world to see what potential good can come of this, right? It's all strategy. And I'm not saying for you to be sleazy and like salesy and ridiculous, right? It's relationship building, but it's relationship building with intention. You're intentionally trying to build a relationship, expand your network. That is the entire point of doing a podcast guesting tour. You're not just doing this for S&Gs. Okay. You're doing this for like business purposes. And with that being said, the bonus outside of the three things that I promised you is to ask how you can actually help them. So many people miss this super late, like it's a layup. At the end of the interview, as they're thanking you for everything and all the things, one of the things that you can do, and I can guarantee you very few people are doing this to those podcast hosts. Hey, How can I support you beyond promoting this episode, which I will, right? How can I support you? How can I actually help you? Because then through whatever it is, if it's connecting them to someone, if it's now they're like, hey, I would love to actually share your audience, whatever it is, you then are now looked at as someone who actually cares about them, cares about their business. And there is that law of reciprocity. Whether we like it or not, that's how human beings are. It's almost like now, okay, I owe you. I got to find a way to pay you back in some way. It's the law of reciprocity. So don't forget to, as you're doing all of this, obvious to grow your business and to grow your brand and all the things, don't forget to lean back and ask, like, hey, how can I actually support you in a deeper way? Because is as we kind of pull all these together, if you started where you were already following them, this is before the interview, you're following them, you're making sure you're commenting on their stuff, you're looking at what they're doing, you're connecting with them in that way, then you're scheduling a pre-recording call to say, hey, I want to make sure that our time together in the interview is spent really well. What do you need from me? Here's how I'm approaching this. Here's what I think I could talk about. And you're building that rapport. Then the call comes and the actual podcast is a smash because now y'all built that rapport. And then you're ending it with like, hey, how can I help you? Now, let me tell you what that does. This is the person who's now going to go to bat for you. They're going to make sure that your episode is promoted the way that it should. They're going to make sure that, hey, if there are opportunities outside of promoting that one episode, they're going to email you, they're going to DM you. Hey, I have this thing. I just met this person. Hey, this organization is looking for speakers. Hey, there's so many things that can come from being intentional with this relationship building method. This is what I mean by strategic, intentionality when it comes to that. Like, it's not just about showing up on the podcast. And so I'm actually going to not only break down what I talked about today, even more in the master class that I'm having next Wednesday. It's all of the things that you do while you're in the conversation, right? If you really enjoyed this entire conversation we had today, where I showed you the intentionality piece of it, that's the same thing we're going to do when we talk about your actual interview, because a lot of people go in and they just have the conversation, right? And it's laughs and it's all and it's good. And then you're done. And you don't even remember what you said, right? And what we do with our clients is we do a game plan before. So it's almost like you are literally pulling your things together and creating a story bank and creating all the things before. So during the conversation, as you're in the flow, you're picking up all the things and you're hearing my voice in your head, like, okay, yeah, Carolee said that. Okay, cool. And by the end of it, you're getting things like, wow, do you have your own podcast? Because if you don't, you should. Like, this was one of the best conversations I ever had. And then you get people who have listened to the podcast episode be like, wow, not only are you smart, but I really like you. I want to work with you. How do I work with you? How do I support you? This is awesome. Like, she's dropping gems and the stories that she's telling, the case studies that she pulled in that is tied to her personal story. Oh my God, this person is so inspirational. It's not just about sounding smart. There is strategy in here. And I want to be able to share that with you. And so if you are looking for ways to grow your business, this is the best way that I know in today. Like I told you when I first started this live, I believe there is a concerted effort to bury certain voices right now, and we have to push back. We can't push back in places that we don't own. We can't push back using platforms that could go at any point. That's not sustainable. And so if you're literally trying to figure out a way to create a space that you own and grow that audience, podcast guesting is the best way to do that, but you have to do it with intention. And relationship building is all about reciprocity. And so this is what I'm going to be teaching you. So if you're interested in joining us, drop podcast masterclass in the comments, and I will send you a DM for a VIP ticket so you can actually ask questions at the event. I'm also going to have the link in the comments. So if you want just like a regular situation, but if you have questions, you want to get this VIP. And I'm actually giving away, I wasn't going to do this, but I'm actually going to give away some VIP tickets for folks who actually have questions and want to be able to interact with me live on the masterclass. If you want that, drop masterclass in the comments and I'll DM you directly. So that's it. That's all I have. That was the bonus, which is pretty much ask what you can do for them, like be a human being, be a good person. But that's it. And in a situation where they try to tell you where your voice belongs or where it doesn't belong, you get to decide that. You have the final say as to where you get to be, right? And you get to create those spaces. And that is the power. That is the power that we have in 2025 that we might not have had decades ago. As someone who is in this skin, in this body, that is what I'm happy about, is I get to decide how I grow my business. You don't control that. As much as the environment that we're living in right now can feel super uncertain and very shaky, you have the power. You have the power. Don't let any messaging that is coming toward us right now make you feel any way otherwise. You have the power. You just have to get in there and use that power. And it's not going to be found on someone else's platform. You have to build your own. And that is my soapbox for the day. And I will catch y'all on the next live. Bye.